a small landlocked country stretching from the level of the sea to the topmost point on the planet. Yet desperate to find balance between its history of political transformations and its potential for stable economic deliverance. Nepal, sandwiched between two of the most populous, powerful and influential countries of the world, once again finds itself standing alone at the junction of violence. Nepal waits at the crossroads as another generation takes matters into their own hand, as another revolution spreads, as another round of confusion rocks this Himalayan nation. The country is in turmoil, the burning fires and the smoke clouds peeling back the years of endless turbulence that Nepal has had to undergo for decades now. In April 2006, Nepal's King Gyanendra issued a proclamation that restored parliament to the then Himalayan kingdom. The reconvened House of Representatives swiftly moved to assert that the sovereign will of the people was paramount. The monarchy was fast-tracked towards the dustbin of history. Nepal's parliament stripped the powers of the king, renamed the government and the army, and released political prisoners. These were actions that reflected the mood of popular democratic aspirations sweeping through the country. A mood that was to stretch into the future.
Right behind me, the entire Nepal parliament has been gutted and has been set afire by thousands of youth who are protesting against the Nepal government, controlled the protest, who has failed completely to keep the country united. And you can see these dramatic visuals of the historic parliament building of Nepal being gutted completely. The students and youth have come inside the parliament complex. Well, this is unprecedented. In your camera screens, you know, the visuals that we saw in Bangladesh, the visuals that you saw in Sri Lanka, now being repeated here with a youth uprising in Nepal.
Thick, black smoke billowing into the sky. This is Kathmandu, capital of Nepal, on Tuesday, 9th of September 2025. For hours, crowds of Nepali youth had been storming the streets, fighting pitched battles of sticks and stones with the police. As the day progressed and anger mounted on the streets, the police began to withdraw. Soon, smoke began to rise from the Singha Darbar Palace, the complex that houses government and parliament buildings. By evening, the announcement that everyone had been waiting for had come. Prime Minister Oli had resigned. Another government in Nepal had fallen. The 14th in 17 years. Not one of them having completed its full term of 5 years. The last Prime Minister of Nepal, KP Sharma Oli, was a seasoned candidate for that particular post. 4 times he had been Prime Minister, and 4 times he had had to quit before time. This time over deepening anger against rampant corruption and nepotism. India's northern neighbor Nepal, a country of some 30 million people, has been marked by its turbulent politics for over 30 years now. Since the time the newly formed Communist Party of Nepal Maoist CPN-M, under the charismatic leadership of a young Pushpa Kamal Dahal, decided to boycott the midterm polls in Nepal in the year 1996. The first nail that was driven into the coffin of the Himalayan kingdom's 2-century-old monarchy. Revolutionary protest is a young person's shout back at Providence. Nepal in September 2025 was no different. Fronted by the youth, led by people in their early teens to those not yet 30. Nepal's worst unrest in decades was fueled by that potent subsection of humanity collectively known as Gen Z.
The Gen Z protesters, I have a clear, and you're doing very well. Stick to your points. This country needs changes, and you are giving an example not just to Nepal, but to the whole world in political science of how things should change.
Weeks before the violence erupted on the streets of Nepalese towns and cities, a hashtag had been going viral across popular social media sites viewed in the Himalayan nation. Hashtag NepoKids. Photographs began to appear, apparently showcasing the glitzy lifestyle of the children of Nepal's political elite. The hashtag suggested that these here were young people who profited from their families' connections, in sharp contrast to the huge chunk of the population that barely scraped out a living.
It was a totally peaceful protest और हम चाह रहे थे कि शांतिपूर्ण ही हो, बट सरकार ने इसको क्रांति में बदला, हमें लगता है ऐसा है, और सरकार को पूरा रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी लेनी चाहिए इसको। हमने तो एक करप्शन के विरुद्ध आंदोलन शुरू किया था, और जो होना भी चाहिए, सब हर एक जगह के युवा को जागना चाहिए करप्शन के लिए। इधर नेपाल में 3% 4% लोग हैं जो सारा संपत्ति ले रखा है, और नेता तो सारे ही करप्ट है।
As the hashtag went viral, more and more people began to talk about the discrepancy in the lifestyle of the privileged and the have-nots. Discontent among the people began to show. The murmurings turned to grumblings. Social media is a big part of Nepali life. It has one of South Asia's highest user rates per capita. Around 90% of the population use the internet. According to the Nepal Social Media Users Survey of 2021, 39% of users spend between 3 to 6 hours every day, and a little over 40% spend between 1 and 2 hours on social media every day. In the first week of September, Nepal's government ordered the blocking of 26 social media platforms for not complying with a deadline to register with Nepal's Ministry of Communication and Information Technology. And anger over corruption crossed the Rubicon. It came rushing out of the pages of social media and began blazing the streets of Nepal. As per the Transparency International Index of 2024, Nepal ranked 107 out of 180 in the Corruption's Perception Index. So at 9 a.m. local time, Monday, 8th of September 2025, Nepal's Gen Z hit the streets, and the latest round of revolt began to angrily shake the pillars of the Himalayan country's establishment. Irate demonstrators gathered in Maitighar, a neighborhood at a busy intersection in the capital Kathmandu. The Maitighar Mandala monument is one of Kathmandu's iconic landmarks and a prime spot to register displeasure against the powers. A non-profit organization that began as a youth movement in 2015 is believed to have initially called for Monday's protest. This was before the government had banned social media. The NGO had used Instagram and Discord to call people to protest at Maitighar Mandala on September 8. The organizers had taken permission from the Kathmandu District Administration Office to hold the peaceful protest that had been called. The NGO is also said to have urged students to turn up in uniform with their books and bags as peaceful symbols of dissent. By afternoon, the mood at the protest site had begun to turn ugly. A group of demonstrators broke down the barricade at the nearby Parliament complex. The situation started becoming tense. The Kathmandu District Administration Office clamped down. At 12:30 p.m., a curfew around the Parliament came into effect. Later, curfew orders were extended to several other areas of Kathmandu. But the young people's anger could not be contained, and to quell them, the police too began to retaliate with force. The police first used tear gas and water cannons on the protesters. The demonstrators hit back with stones, tree branches and water bottles. According to a message on NGO Hami Nepal's communication channel, the police began firing rubber bullets at the protesters.
This government has failed. Please people, everyone should know this. म यहाँ डाक्टर भएर उपचार गर्न आएको थिए हैन उपचार गर्दा गर्दै हामीले केही बिरामीहरुलाई ट्रान्सफर गर्यौं तर गोली हानेको चाहिँ यिनीहरुले आएर इमर्जेन्सीको ढोकामा गाली हानेको.
Between 19 and 22 people died that Monday on the streets of Nepal. There are conflicting reports on the actual number of deaths. The police are said to have fired live ammunition as well as rubber bullets and tear gas canisters at the protesters. According to Nepal's health ministry, more than 400 people, including police and security staff, were injured in violence on that day. Prime Minister Oli released a statement late on Monday night saying he was deeply saddened by the protesters' deaths and called for an investigation into the violence. As Bloody Monday ended, Nepali politics was pushed to the edge. By Monday evening, the Home Minister Ramesh Lekhak offered his resignation, taking moral responsibility for the fracas. The coalition government tottered, seemingly having lost the confidence of the people. Late on Monday night, after an emergency meeting, the government of Nepal announced the lifting of social media ban.
The Narayanithi Palace here in the heart of Kathmandu. This was yet another location where on Monday afternoon, the deadly protesters had actually clashed with the APF and the Nepali police, leading to several killings and massive injuries as well. The protests continue across Nepal against the KP Sharma Oli government. blaming him for corruption and elitist lifestyle, and also not bringing in transparency in governance.
When Tuesday, September 9th dawned, the anger of the Nepalese youth had not been soothed. It had increased. The ban may have been lifted, but the police firing and the deaths of their fellow protesters saw Gen Z back on the streets, and now in greater and greater numbers. This time the protesters were not carrying posters, and they were not in school uniform. The young protesters continued to rally in different parts of Kathmandu, but they mostly gathered near the parliament building. First, it was the tires that began to be burnt. Then stones were thrown at police in riot gear. And then young protesters were seen chasing policemen through narrow streets. Finally, the fire of discontent reached more brick and mortar structures. Thick, black smoke began to billow out into the sky from the parliament building. Other government buildings also became targets, as did private and official residencies of the ministers of Nepal government. Political leaders not in government were also targets. Across Kathmandu, the ire of the youth clashed with armed police and people in power. Helicopters were used to rescue some besieged politicians. There were instances of looting amidst arson that began to be reported. Police stations got attacked, and the Tribhuvan International Airport at Kathmandu shut down operations. Nepal continued to spiral out of control till the army decided to step in. Nepal's army chief, General Ashok Raj Sikdel, issued a statement saying that if the damaging, looting and setting fire to public and private property continued, all security institutions, including the Nepal army, were committed to taking control of the situation. By Tuesday evening, the Prime Minister, KP Sharma Oli, resigned. In his resignation letter, he said, "In view of the adverse situation in the country, I have resigned effective today to facilitate the solution to the problem and to help resolve it politically in accordance with the Constitution." On hearing of the resignation, Gen Z demonstrators entered Parliament complex, waving their hands and shouting slogans, even as smoke still rose from sections of the building. Although many protesters remained on the street, there was no more violence as security forces kept their distance. The army chief Ashok Raj Sikdel, in a video address, urged protesters to end the unrest and avoid further loss of life and property, and to come for talks.
राष्ट्रको सर्वोपरि हितको रक्षा गर्नु हामी सबैको साझा कर्तव्य हो। तसर्थ यस विषम परिस्थितिबाट राष्ट्रलाई शान्तिपूर्ण तवरले निकास दिनको लागि आन्दोलनरत समूहलाई आन्दोलनका कार्यक्रमहरू स्थगन गरी वार्ताको निमित्त आह्वान गर्दछौँ।
Armored vehicles kept vigil on largely deserted roads. Shops and markets remained shut. In Kathmandu, the airport opened and international flights resumed. Some buildings still smoldered, But the violent protests, it seemed, were over. Leaving a wisp of change hanging in the air, the Gen Z of Nepal had returned home, waiting for their actions to bear credible proof.